Back in 2005, I went on a 6-day hike down into the Grand Canyon with 5 other guys, and I almost didn't make it past day 1. Now, it's true that I was a young man back then, 25 years old, and I was in reasonably good shape, but I did not practice at all for that hike, and I didn't train at all for it. And the first day of the hike was by far the worst. That was the day that we traveled all the way from the top rim on the northern rim of the Grand Canyon all the way to the bottom, and it was grueling. We started in the morning, and by evening, we were almost at our camp, but I couldn't make it. We were about 100 yards from the camp when my legs just gave out on me. I stumbled to the ground. I physically could not get up. I just had to lay there for an hour. Now, all day I had been doing most of the right things. I was staying well hydrated. We stopped for lunch, but the thing that I forgot to do was towards the end of the trip, I forgot to continue eating. My body was completely out of energy, and I was just exhausted. I think emotionally and mentally speaking, that's how a lot of us are feeling right now. In this season of wandering where we don't know what's going on, a lot of us just feel tired. A lot of us just feel exhausted. Like we're not sure how much farther we have to go, and we're just losing energy to continue this wandering. And so as we continue this talk this week, I wanted to pause and let you know that there's a good place that you and I can stop to find rest. But before we get there, I want to have you think about how it is that you're exhausted and maybe how it is that you're frustrated. As we're about to look at the Israelite people and what Moses had to go through, they were exhausted. They were frustrated. The people had been traveling for a while. They were hungry. They didn't know where their food was going to come from. They were thirsty. They were complaining. And I'll tell you what, Moses was just exhausted. No matter how many times God showed up to miraculously save the people just didn't trust God like they should have. And no matter how many times Moses was a good leader to show them what to do, the people just didn't trust Moses either. And Moses was getting tired of it. He was getting exhausted. And I picked a section to read today from their wandering that shows what Moses did when he was so exhausted and so frustrated. This reading comes from Numbers chapter 20. It says, Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" And just to take a quick break there, God had told Moses that in order to give water to the people, he was supposed to speak to it. And I don't know how this was going to work, but by speaking to the rock, water would come out of it. So Moses, completely exhausted and frustrated with what the people were doing, he did this. He gathered them all together, and then verse 11, Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. Still a miracle, but yet it was a reminder that Moses was exhausted and Moses was frustrated. You can see what he did when he was exhausted and frustrated. He who called the people rebels was actually rebelling against God himself. And there were going to be consequences of that as you read on through the account. But you can just see here what Moses did when he was so exhausted, when he was so frustrated. And maybe this is a good time for you just to pause and think. What do you do when you're exhausted and when you're frustrated? Maybe this past week, you've been acting like you've got no energy, and because of it, you were acting out in anger. You were acting out in impatience. You were saying things that you immediately regretted. And maybe right now there's some shame and some guilt that you're trying to deal with. When you're exhausted, when you're frustrated, what does that look like? Well, as we navigate through wandering, I wish I could tell you that the end is in sight, but no one knows when that's coming, and we don't know when a new normal will get here. So for the time being, we can't just stop, but we can pause to rest. And God is the one who can give you the energy you need in this moment to navigate what's coming up. In those moments where you feel like your energy is dropping and you're just getting sick and tired of everything around you, there's something you need to do. Something that Moses should have done. Something we see Jesus model. But what we should do when we're tired and exhausted is simply to pause and rest. Pause and think about what is really going on around you. As you pause and reflect on what's going on, it's a good opportunity to ask God to give you perspective, to know that the value of your life is not doing what you want to do. That's where we get into trouble. But the value of your life is in who God wants you to be. Sometimes we get frustrated, we get exhausted, and we just get angry. But with God, when you rest in His presence, there is a moment to reflect on who you are, a child of God. He has forgiven you. He gives you strength. He alone can give you the energy you need. And with His forgiveness, there is hope. Hope for you, and also hope to restore those relationships around you. Well, no matter what, there will be days and times when you find yourself being exhausted, maybe even frustrated. What do you do in those moments to rest and relax and recharge? We'd love to hear your comments so that we as a community can share ideas and learn how to recharge and relax together. Thanks so much for being here with today's video. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow for the next part of our series that goes through wandering.
If these messages are a blessing to you and your faith and you want more, we'd love to make it easy for you. You can just click this button right here to get connection to a YouTube subscription, or if you want these devotions right into your inbox, you can click right here. YouTube here, email here. Email here, YouTube there. Click both these buttons. We'll give you as much Jesus as we can because we know that Jesus is all that we need.